It was the longest canyon, number of calibers, in the contemporary history of the Spanish campaign artillery. More than 6 countries still have it in service, after more than 40 years. We are seeing the M-107 self-propelled gun, manufactured by the American company Pacific Car and Foundry Company. Let's learn more about this magnificent artillery piece, of which the Spanish Army was one of the few lucky countries to have it in service. Recall that we are at a time when the world began to remake the end of World War II. The trench warfare was over, to give way to constant movements of mechanized and armored units. The United States had learned how vital it was to be able to move its Army Corps artillery, or strategic artillery, as quickly and easily as possible from one position to another. And the available heavy artillery material, which was to offer fire support up to 20-30 kilometers away, was not designed for it. As a result of the previous reflections, the American company Pacific Car and Foundry Company designed, on the same self-propelled chassis, 3 different vehicles. The M-107 cannon, the M-110 howitzer, and the recovery vehicle M-578. The manufacture of the M-107 began in 1961. The first cannons arrived in the American units, beginning in 1962. They were a total of 524 units of the M-107, until 1980, when it finished its production. The M-107s were used by a total of 14 countries in the world, including the U.S. 12 M-107 guns arrived in Spain during 1973 and 1974. With these units, a self-propelled artillery group was formed in Spain. This campaign artillery group consisted of 3 batteries, companies, at the rate of 4 pieces M-107 per battery. And all this, forming an organizational part of the Laureate 11th Regiment of Artillery of Campaign, RACA 11. Until 1988, when they were transformed into M-110, 203 mm howitzer. The M-107 was a 175 mm self-propelled barrel, with 60 caliber, 60 × 175 mm. The vehicle weighed 28.6 tons, measured 11.26 meters, had a width of 3.15 meters, and a height of 3.68 meters. The Meter 107 was a long-range canyon that had 2 great advantages. It stood out for its great mobility, unknown in this type of pieces until then, and its great firepower, at that time, of course.
They should arrive at any moment.
It had a total endowment of 13 gunners, distributed as follows. The driver was the only one traveling inside the M-107 vehicle. And on short journeys, at their entrance in combat position, sitting on the outside and rear of the chassis, they were the commander of the piece, and 3 more gunners. On longer journeys, they were incorporated into the M548 ammunition vehicle, corresponding to said M-107, which carries 8 more gunners, including the M548 driver. The barge was made of cast and welded steel. Inside the chassis, the engine was on the right, the driver sat on the left, and the artillery piece occupied the back half. It had a small mechanical crane, installed along with a hydraulic attacker, that facilitated the loading of the projectile into the breech of the canyon. The chassis had supports for only 2 loads of ammunition, immediately used. It had an 8-cylinder, 2-stroke Detroit diesel 8V71T diesel engine, so it reached 56 km per hour. The General Motors transmission gave it 4 forward gears and 2 reverse gears. The undercarriage consisted of 5 double wheels, covered with solid rubber, on each side of the vehicle. The drive pinion was in front, and the tension wheel was the rear. It had torsion bars, with hydraulic shock absorbers, as a suspension. And in the back, it had a hydraulic blade that was deployed before firing. It had a fuel tank of 1,137 liters of capacity, which allowed an autonomy of up to 725 kilometers. It could cope with slopes of up to 60 front and up to 30 lateral inclination. It passed steps up to 1 meter high and could wade up to 1 meter deep in water. The striped barrel was the M-113 model of 175 mm and 60 caliber. It could move from -5 degrees to 65 degrees in elevation, and from -30 degrees to more than 30 degrees horizontally. The barrel had neither a mouth brake nor a fume extractor. The projectiles reached a pipe exit speed of 900 meters per second. The recommended rate was 1 shot every 2 minutes, but it could be intensified to 1 shot per minute. At sustained rates, the life of the tube deteriorated very quickly, so the life of the tube was reduced to about 500 shots, which was not positive at all. The cannon fired projectiles, weighing about 70 kilograms and a maximum range of 32 kilometers. As we can see in the image, a complete shot consisted of from 1 to 3 propulsion loads, depending on the distance you would like to reach. A projectile of the M437A1 or M437A2 models. A fuse, which should be threaded to each projectile. Of the different fuses used, the most common was double action, impact and inertial. The M-107 cannon was the expected solution for the time, and provided great mobility and a certain firepower. But the inconveniences appeared soon, and they are what caused that, in just 20 years, this cannon model was stopped using. And thanks to its modularity of design, they could easily be transformed into M-110 shells, something that all the armies that had M-107 did. Among its main shortcomings, one of them was that it lacked all kinds of protection for the crew, including NBQ threats. Another weakness was its radius of error in the shots. This was due to the inevitable vibration of the long tube during firing. This lack of stability inevitably meant that the whole process of aiming the canyon before refiring had to be done again. In addition, with high elevation angles, it was necessary to lower the barrel for the refill process. The M-107 cannon was not able to carry out the so-called counter-battery fires, which required a quick and forceful response. And finally, all the problems derived from a barrel so long that, after continuous saving of fire, it weakened and significantly reduced its life cycle.